Hello, everyone. Welcome into the Benjamin Cure Show, the best place for the best takes on this Monday, October 7th, 2024. So glad to be back. What an amazing Week 5 of games. We've got an amazing one tonight, Saints-Chiefs. I can't wait. We'll preview that a little bit later in the show. A lot to get to across a lot of different sports, to be honest. I know we're usually just football, usually just NFL football, but I want to talk a little college football today, and I also saw some things in some other sports that I thought deserved to be talked about, so we don't have a lot of time. Let's get right into it. I want to start with the Aaron Rodgers game in London. Wasn't the primetime game, but was the game that I was most thinking about over the weekend. In Spanish, you say pendiente. It was the game that I was most pendiente of over the weekend because I wanted to see how things would play out. All of that hype about Davante Adams. Would they make the trade? Is he going there? How soon? It's costing the Raiders $1 million a week to keep him on the roster. Mark Davis is apparently more... He wants to get rid of him quicker, sooner than later, right? Because he doesn't want to have to pay that $1 million a week. He would like to lessen that amount, if not get rid of it entirely, if the team is willing to take on the salary that trades for him. That's a lot of the backdoor math stuff. But I watched Aaron this weekend, and it's bad. Aaron Rodgers was brought into New York to be their savior, and instead, he might be their biggest liability alongside his own guy and Nathaniel Hackett calling plays. That is a bad offense, and this defense is still really good, but it's not as good as it was last year. It's definitely not as great as it was last year. They cannot stop opposing offenses the way that they used to. This defense is not as great as they were last year. And you watch Aaron, and the reason, I think everybody always wants to blame the play caller and the offense, and Nathaniel Hackett's not the best offensive coordinator in the world, nor is he the best scheme guy, nor is he the best play caller in my opinion. But a lot of this does fall on Aaron. You watch those plays. You watch other people who know a lot more than me, who are former quarterbacks, break down film over the weekend on Aaron Rodgers, and you see Aaron just making flat-out bad decisions. Bad decision-making from Aaron Rodgers. Decisions that he's never made before. Decisions that Aaron Rodgers in his prime or Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay 3 years ago wouldn't have made. Really bad throws, not hitting his usual spots. I think I'm witnessing something very similar to what we saw when Russell Wilson went to the Broncos just a few years ago. You're seeing a guy whose biggest threat and his biggest weapon was the off-schedule downfield throws, the deep balls. Russ lost touch of that, and it entirely changed his career, and it's the reason why he's not a starter right now in the NFL. Aaron, for whatever reason, whether it be age, the injury, maybe a little bit of reluctance to drop back and hit that back foot hard into the ground and really solidify his positioning, whatever the case may be, Aaron has lost touch of his deep ball entirely, and he made bad decisions, and he made bad throws, and he can't hit the spots that he used to as a quarterback, which was the reason why they brought him in. That stat line, if I told you the New York Jets quarterback was in a tight game the entire time, played really sloppy, and finished with 3 picks, you would have probably thought I was talking to you about Zach Wilson. You would not have assumed that Aaron Rodgers was going to be the guy under center this year for the Jets, and that offensively, it really wouldn't look all that much better than last year's Jets with Zach Wilson at the helm. And I'll take it a step further here. Aaron, at this point, he goes on the Pat McAfee show, and I do get it. I get that he's trying to get away from the offseason and get away from all the negative headlines and saying, well, it really doesn't matter. Minicamp doesn't matter. OTA doesn't matter. But it does matter when it feels obvious that your timing with your wide receiver is simply not there. Aaron is not on the same page as any of his receivers right now, so he can go on the Pat McAfee show all he wants every single Tuesday and say, well, that was the offseason, and clearly it doesn't matter as much as people think it does. There's a lot of practices between now and OTAs and a lot of time to make up for that. Well, it doesn't look like you made up for that in the time that you've been with the Jets. It's bad. This is really, really bad, and it's really ugly, and it makes me just kind of marvel even more at Tom Brady at 40 years of age doing what he did compared to what Aaron is doing now at 40 years of age. It just looks bad. Aaron looks like he's not in sync. And I'll take it a step further here. People are saying now, oh, is this going to heat up the Davante Adams situation? And is this going to heat up the hype? To be honest, even if the Jets trade for Davante Adams today at the end of the show or while we're live or tomorrow, it doesn't make me feel all that much better about the Jets because I look at Aaron, and Aaron, it's not a scheme thing. It's not a weapon thing. It's not a Garrett Wilson not getting open thing. If anything, it's a Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers not being on the same page thing. But like Davante Adams, who's an elite route runner, who's a little bit older, who's a little bit past his prime, is not going to fix Aaron Rodgers' problems right now, which is Aaron does not look like the old version of himself. Aaron looks old. Aaron looks washed. And that is a reality that I think a lot of Jets fans are sort of acknowledging this Monday morning because I see Aaron on Sunday, and I see Aaron for the past few weeks, and as interesting as the storylines are surrounding that team from a journalist perspective and from a broadcaster's perspective, it has been some of the most unwatchable football ever. It feels like last year's Jets teams, but even worse because the defense isn't coming up with like a pick six on every play or a strip sack. Like this Jets defense is still good, but they're not as good as they were last season, and it's getting ugly. It's getting ugly, I think, in New York, and I don't know. I think this is one of those weird... Aaron's legacy feels weird to me. The past few years just feel really odd. Going to New York after having 2 back-to-back MVPs and having a weird, quiet season. Aaron wasn't amazing that last season in Green Bay. People seem to forget that. And then he gets injured. And then Aaron, like I said, people expected Aaron Rodgers to be awesome. And I told you I did not expect Aaron to be great. He hadn't played a real snap of football in over 500 days. And then he comes back and he's not great. We already have a decent sample size from Aaron that last year in Green Bay was not pretty. We saw him take 500 days, not off, but off the field because of an injury, and we've seen him come back, and through 5 games, Aaron Rodgers looks really bad, and that is the reality, and I hate saying that because, honestly, I was so excited for Aaron going into the year, but, like, I told you guys I thought Aaron would be a bad quarterback going into the year, and I underestimated how bad he would be. And I still had faith in the Jets as a whole to kind of turn it around because I thought that defense was so good that they would keep them in games and Aaron would be able to pull away in the last 2 minutes of the game or so. He can't even do that. Aaron has become a liability in a way that Aaron Rodgers has never been, and it feels like a different era in the NFL this morning, 5 weeks into the year. Speaking of a different era, Josh Allen, that Stefon Diggs beef over the weekend. Stefon Diggs giving Josh Allen that side eye right after they said hi to each other. Felt like both of those guys just in the moment were like, we don't want to make each other uncomfortable, so we'll just acknowledge each other on the field in front of the cameras and go our separate ways. I feel like the Josh Allen and the Stefon Diggs beef to me kind of feels like an ex. You guys hate each other now, and you can't stand to be around one another, and you don't want to be in the same room or in the same place or on the same field or at the same event, but there was a time when you guys enjoyed being together, and you know what? Maybe even to a certain extent where you guys needed each other. People forget just how weird that Stefon Diggs era at the end in Minnesota was, where Stefon Diggs was kind of regarded as a diva. He wanted his money. He wanted out of Minnesota. He wanted to leave the Vikings organization, and he went to the Bills, and he helped develop Josh Allen into the quarterback that he is today, and Stefon Diggs became the best version of himself and played his prime years in Buffalo with Josh Allen. And then for Josh Allen can stand at press conferences over the past several weeks and say, well, it's nice not to have people care about what their stats are as long as we win, and take subtle shots at Stefon Diggs, even though he went on the next week and said, no, that wasn't a shot at Stefon Diggs. Sure, it wasn't. Maybe you didn't intend for it to be, but it definitely came out that way. And Josh can act like things are better now, but Josh owes a huge portion of him coming into his own as an NFL quarterback and a huge portion of his development as an NFL quarterback to Stefon Diggs and having an elite wide receiver one, which is exactly what Stefon Diggs was then and what he is now. You can make the argument. I'll take it a step further here. Stefon Diggs, Josh looks bad. Josh Allen looked terrible in that game. 131 yards, the fewest passing yards of his entire career, even when he was really bad that first season. Had a touchdown, no picks, but like a 58% completion percentage or a 58% passer rating. Josh Allen did not look good in that game, and in the end, Stefon Diggs gets the last laugh. He wins the game, and he was clearly pretty happy about it, and he was kind of snide in his post-game press conference. And to me, I hate to see it on the field, but I do understand the competitive nature. Those guys are at odds with each other, but make no mistake, I think it's important to remind football fans, and maybe even if I was in the room across from both of them, it's important for them to acknowledge, look, you guys may not like each other now. You may not like how it ended. You may not like certain things about each other, about your time with each other, but there was a time where you guys really did need each other, and you guys were able to make a great duo. Just kind of unfortunate to see how that's played out. Thought it was kind of ugly, but that's the reality. It did feel like an ex moving on and then seeing each other in a place. It was real weird, the entire circumstance and everything going on with it. Want to talk a little bit of basketball. So over the weekend, LeBron James and Bronny James made their debut on the court together in the Lakers preseason, and everybody is clowning LeBron James in the comments and saying, whatever it is that they're saying, and more so clowning Bronny than they are LeBron. But to me, I really want basketball fans and OG NBA fans to enjoy the next 10 months of NBA basketball and to enjoy the Lakers and to not feel the need to clown Bronny in every single possession of every single game. Bronny did not play particularly well. In 13 minutes, he had 4 turnovers. His dad tried to give him an assist. He missed the shot. It is what it is. But you are never going to see this again. You are never going to see a player play alongside his son in the NBA while the older player, their dad, is still a top 10 player in the NBA. LeBron James was great. Him and AD started off super hot. They combined 8 for 12. Felt like they were continuing that Olympic momentum. They both started off the game really strong. In the end, the Lakers lost, and Bronny didn't have his best performance in the world. But just the mere idea and the mere reality of Bronny James sharing a court with his father and LeBron sharing the court with his son, while LeBron is still playing at a high level and Bronny gets to develop under his dad's wing and his dad can take him under his wing, is the most surreal and is the most amazing, arguably one of the best storylines in sports history ever. And I want people to enjoy it because people are immediately going to clown on Bronny and people are immediately going to go after J.J. Redick and go after the Lakers for nepotism. But you know what? I did enjoy seeing LeBron James and Bronny share the court together, and I'm going to this season, and I don't feel bad about it, and I'm not ashamed to say that. It is going to be a really nice experience towards the end of LeBron James' career, whether you think he's the GOAT or he's one of. As his career sort of comes to a close here, this is going to be the final chapter. This is going to be the curtain call, and I hope that for your own sake as a basketball fan, you enjoy it, and you put down the phone, and you stop hating, and you just take it all in, because it's not going to last very long. That's the reality. Okay, this study, I saw this on Instagram, and I thought this was interesting. And before you say, Ben, a study, give me a second here. Really not a study, more of a survey. So NFL players were surveyed by journalists through the NFLPA. They've got these, they do these pretty often in the NFL, where writers pose questions. And did I unsave this post? Unbelievable. I have a statistic in front of me. I just wanted to have the Instagram post as well. Okay. No, I've got this. Okay, there we go. I found it. NFL players made their feelings on Taylor Swift abundantly clear in a new poll. When asked, has Taylor Swift's presence at Chiefs games been positive for the NFL, a negative, or neither, players responded 4.9% negative, 22.5% said neither, and 72.5% thought positive. So when NFL players were surveyed anonymously about Taylor Swift and what they think of her being at games, and do they think it has a negative impact on the NFL and on the league, or a positive impact, or they just don't care, 72.5% of them said, I think it's had a positive effect on the league. 7 in 10 NFL players that were surveyed think that Taylor Swift is good for the NFL, and that makes them smart. And that shows you that people should not be so complaining and so ready to immediately jump. I get it. You don't like her. Maybe you don't like her politics. Whatever the case may be. Maybe you're over them showing her on camera. But to act like Taylor Swift is not good for the NFL and is not good for their business and is not good for the game is pretty ignorant on your part if that's how you feel as a fan. Taylor Swift is one of the biggest superstars in the world, particularly amongst women, which is a demographic that the NFL has always tried to get involved and excited about the league in itself. They have not done a good job over the years. The NFL has said, we want to encourage women to root for our teams, and we want to encourage women to take part in fandom in the NFL. And then they do things like let Deshaun Watson off the hook and let countless other cases like that go off the hook. And it makes women feel like they're not truly being embraced by the league. And you may say, Ben, it really doesn't matter. It matters to the NFL because if the NFL has managed to become a multi-billion-dollar business and the biggest sport in North America based off of men's fandom alone, imagine what the NFL could do and what the NFL could become and the doors that they could open for themselves internationally if they can finally get women on board with the NFL. The players understand that. They were surveyed. They answered 72.5% of them said, yeah, I think Taylor Swift is positive for the league. I assume that on a Monday Night Football game in prime time, Taylor Swift will be present tonight when the Chiefs take on the Saints, and people are going to complain. And the reality is you simply do not know how big of a deal this is for the NFL, and maybe you're just not paying enough attention. Last year's Super Bowl was the first time that we saw so many of these women's-focused brands or women's hygiene products be featured in commercials. You don't think the NFL is now relying or at least liking that check from all these brands that never before had any inkling or iota of wanting to advertise on an NFL game? It's better for the business of the league. It's more money. It gives teams the ability to grow more TV revenue, which is what the leagues are built off of. Players understand that. What does more revenue for the league mean? It means higher salary caps. It means owners being forced to spend more on player contracts. It means potentially taking this game internationally, which the NFL has always wanted to do, and not just for a one-off game in London or a one-off game in Spain in 2025 or a one-off game potentially in Abu Dhabi, which was reported for the first time over the weekend. They want to make the international aspect of the game a permanent, recurring thing. They want to have a division internationally. And while I don't know how that's going to work, and people much smarter than us will figure it out, this gateway of Taylor Swift and more women fans than they've ever had, that's going to be the way they do it. So for those of you complaining about the Taylor Swift thing, I assume it'll be in full effect tonight because I assume she will be at the game. It's a primetime game, Monday Night Football on ABC, or at least ESPN. I know that. People are going to get pissed, but the reality is she's good for the league, and that's really all there is to say about it. Jaden Daniels. Is Jaden Daniels the best rookie quarterback ever? And it's crazy for me to say this coming off a season where C.J. Stroud became the best rookie quarterback ever. But what Jaden Daniels is doing right now is unbelievable, and he deserves all the credit in the world. Jaden Daniels, through 5 starts, has over 1,000 passing yards and 250 rushing yards. That's never been done before. Jaden Daniels' completion percentage through 4 games and through 5 games has never happened before. Nobody has ever had a higher median completion percentage through the first 5 games of the year or through any 5-game stretch according to NFL analytics. You can only compare what Jaden Daniels is doing completion percentage-wise to Peyton Manning's MVP season and Tom Brady's MVP season when they were on their MVP campaigns in their prime. Jaden Daniels has the elusiveness and the agility and the top speed and the acceleration of Lamar Jackson using his legs, and he has the accuracy of prime Drew Brees and of Peyton Manning's in his MVP season and of Tom Brady during his MVP campaign. Jaden Daniels is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and I can't wait for next week because we will see the best quarterback currently in the NFL in terms of regular season play in Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens as Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders take them on. I don't know if it's a primetime game, but I can't wait for it because it will be one of the best games of the year, undeniably so. But what Jaden Daniels is doing a year removed from C.J. Stroud lighting up the league his first year, these quarterbacks are better sooner than ever, and I know it's not the same for every quarterback. Caleb Williams is obviously sort of coming into his own, had a great weekend, 300 yards passing in the air, but to me, this Jaden Daniels thing, it's once again a testament to just how great these quarterbacks are coming out of school because they have 7-on-7, they have QB camps, they have private coaches from the time they're in high school if they have the benefit of the resources and of the circumstances, and they have it in college, and they've taken 10,000 snaps before they get into the NFL, and that's the reality. That is a massive weapon for young quarterbacks. It helps them to recognize more sooner and be able to process the game quicker. And Jaden Daniels is doing exactly that, and NFL fans should be worried. And to me, there's been a lot of talk over the past several years about the NFC East and who is the best quarterback in the division. People thought it was Dak, and then it sort of became Jalen Hurts. I thought it was Jalen Hurts for some time there after the Super Bowl run. But when you really look at it, you look at the NFC East, you look at Dak Prescott, you look at Jalen Hurts, you look at their current play and who they are, and then you look at Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels is the best quarterback in that division in just his first 5 games in the league. He is better than Dak Prescott. He is better than Jalen Hurts. He's better than Jalen on his legs. He doesn't have nearly the amount of turnover problems that Jalen Hurts has. Jaden is more accurate with the football. Jaden is a better distributor of the football than even Dak Prescott, who, if nothing else, that's kind of Dak's superpower, just putting the ball in the right spots. Jaden does that better than him. Jaden has a higher football IQ. Jaden has more success. Jaden is on pace to have... Jaden has already broken so many records in terms of completion percentage. He's had games with 80 and 90% completion. That is the best quarterback in that division and maybe the best quarterback in the NFC. That remains to be seen, but that's not a hot take as of right now. With that being said, I want to move on here. Alex Pereira. To me, he's on a speed run right now to becoming the greatest UFC and maybe even MMA fighter of all time. And I saw a tweet from Ariel Helwani over the weekend. I want to pull it up that way it's accurate. Over the weekend, right after Alex Pereira's massive big-time win, Ariel tweeted something out here where So Ariel Helwani wrote after Alex Pereira's win, if it was up to me, Alex wouldn't fight again until July or so. He's carrying the UFC now, but it's a lot. Let the man rest and come back fresh next summer. I've had Ariel not on this show, but I've gone live with him on Instagram before. I chat with Ariel pretty often. I DM him all the time. He's an invaluable resource to me, MMA-wise and just career-wise. I see him as a big-time mentor, even from afar, and I admire what Ariel Helwani has done and the career he has built and the path that he has built and the journey that he has sort of taken through the ups and downs of everything. Big admirer of Ariel Helwani. With that being said, I disagree with this advice big time from Ariel Helwani, or disagree with that opinion. Alex Pereira right now is 37 years old, and he's sort of starting on this goated run very late in his career. Alex needs to fit as many fights as he possibly can into the next year and a half, 2 years, because before he knows it, I'm not saying he's going to lose that chin, but he's going to lose some power, and he's going to, people say that power is the last thing to go, so people might scoff at that, but like, he's not going to be, Alex Pereira is not going to get better at 37 years of age. He's going to, incrementally as he gets older, get a little bit worse. Reaction time will slow down. Power will lessen up a little bit, won't be quite as strong. I'm not saying Alex Pereira is going to fall off a cliff, but to say that he should take a break, I think the break right now for Alex Pereira at this point in his career is the worst thing he could possibly do. I think he needs to stay consistent, stay fighting. He's the best fighter in MMA right now. That's not a question to me. He should be pound for pound number one. I believe he is pound for pound number one. I know John Jones still exists, but John isn't fighting right now and he's not active. For that reason, Alex should be the pound for pound number one fighter in the world. He is the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. Even if the rankings don't reflect that or acknowledge that, I haven't even taken a look at them as of this morning. But the advice of, hey, Alex, great job, you're carrying the UFC right now, but wait. I would not wait if I was Alex. I would take as many fights as I possibly can between now and the next 18 months because the clock is ticking for Alex Pereira. We're just learning about him, and we love him over the past 2.5 years. But he's already 37 years old, and he's not getting any younger, and we know about the drop-off in MMA fighters and in athletes in general, but specifically MMA fighters in such a punishing sport. Yeah, I wowould not take a break if I'm Alex Pereira. I entirely disagree with that, to be honest. Shedeur Sanders over the weekend, this clip came out. Shedeur Sanders got told by Mark Davis while he was courtside at a WNBA game, who knows, you might be at home right now. If I'm Shedeur Sanders, Shedeur kind of laughed and acknowledged it, and he didn't shy away from it. He kept his cool. But, like, Raiders don't have a great history of developing young quarterbacks or young talent in general. If I'm Shedeur, or if I'm his father, Deion Sanders, who actually liked the post on Bleacher Report I saw, I'm staying away from the Raiders if I can. I'm pulling an Eli, which I think Deion will do for his son anyway. I think they will be the first ones to attempt that in about 10, 15 years. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, if I'm Shedeur, I do not want to go to the Raiders. That is a reality. Last thing here. Deshaun Watson. Kevin Stefanski says they're not changing quarterbacks in Cleveland. Well, Kevin Stefanski is essentially saying, Kevin Stefanski at this point is essentially saying, I don't care about winning. How you come to the conclusion that Deshaun Watson is still a starting quarterback in the NFL, I'm not quite sure. I don't know. But Deshaun has been terrible. Deshaun's off-the-field issues weren't enough to keep him from getting a second opportunity. I'm not here to debate that. That's long gone. That's long in the past. They already paid him. So from that standpoint, it's already happened. Any consequences that were going to come down have already come down, even though I know some cases have reopened, which I find to be very interesting. But he's not good right now. He's not a good quarterback. And in that division with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, who, even though the Bengals lost, played excellent in that overtime loss against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, that team, as stacked as they are, they might be in one of the worst spots a franchise could possibly be in. You have a stacked roster. You're ready to win now. You're great in the trenches, but you just paid massive guaranteed money to a quarterback, which means your dead cap hit, if you get rid of him, is going to be astronomical. The dead cap hit, I believe, is anywhere between 60 and 90 million, depending on when they cut him over the next 2 seasons. If they do, they really cannot move off of him. It is a massive cap hit. It's too large to eat. And the Deshaun Watson thing is rearing its ugly head big time for Cleveland. I'm not saying rightfully so. I'm not saying deserved, but do with that information what you will. with that being said, I think that's all for this week's show. So many interesting storylines. Texas is going to move to number 1, rightfully so. To me, there's an argument to be made that Texas in college football, Texas might win 2 national championships over the next 2 years between Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning. And to me, that's not a hot take. After Alabama drops from 1, they were a little bit fraudulent. I don't know how. I'm not saying Vanderbilt's a bad team because Vanderbilt clearly went in there with the right attitude, and they believe they had an opportunity to win that game from the very beginning. That was obvious. But that collapse, I like Kalen DeBoer, but Nick Saban's not letting that happen. And I know Nick Saban lost once as a 1 seed, so people are going to say, oh, well, it has happened before. Nick Saban is not letting that happen after a rivalry week against Georgia where all of that adrenaline, I guess, and that energy and that juju was essentially expelled from the team. Like, this is a team in Alabama that needs to find their footing. They're one of the top 5 teams in the nation, top 10 for sure, but they're not 1. And so Texas now moves into that 1 spot. Miami Hurricanes will probably move to the 7th spot after a thrilling win over the Cal Bears. Fernando Mendoza played so well for the Cal Bears. I was talking to him over the weekend a little bit. Was honestly rooting for him in that game. Played so well to start. Fernando Mendoza played the best football that he has to this point as a college football quarterback, and he put, I think, the entire world on notice on that game on ABC, even though it was at 10:30 at night, and it was a late one. I didn't go to sleep until like 2:30 that morning, but Fernando played great. And Fernando is sort of proving that he's one of the best distributors of the football in all of college football, and he's always been underrated. And every time he's made a switch as he's gone from school to school when he was growing up, there was always a little bit of doubt, I feel like, at the new starting spot, and he always seemed to quiet that noise relatively quickly. Fernando deserves all the credit in the world. So do the Cal Bears. They have an amazing secondary. 10 picks throughout the first few weeks of the season. They still were a really good set. They played really aggressively, and they played really well, that secondary, through the first 3 quarters, and then things in the fourth quarter just kind of blew up in their face, and it collapsed from there. And you hate to see it. But, yeah, very proud of Fernando. Wish it would have been a different result. That's going to be a heartbreaking loss. I was corresponding with him a little bit. Did not love that for him, to be honest. That was a really tough loss. As someone who wanted to see him win that game, that's a tough pill to swallow. But that is all for this week's show. Like I said, I feel like we touched upon a lot of different things. I'm in a little bit of a rush, as you can see. A lot going on here. But always want to give you guys a good program, a good show, and make sure that we talk about all the things that we care about that we saw over the weekend. I don't think I'm missing anything. So with that being said, that is all for this week's show. I'll see you on Monday.